Good afternoon, everybody. So, ladies and gentlemen, experts and attendees, welcome to our panel discussion on AI, ethics, base, and politics. Before starting, we would like to express our heartfelt gratitude to the organizer of this symposium, particularly Stephen Schramm, for providing this platform to delve into the complexity of AI impact on our society. I'm Gifkan Mohammad from the Digital Transformation Office and the Data Science Competence Center at the University of Geneva. And it has been my privilege, actually, to organize this roundtable discussion alongside two esteemed colleagues whose contribution to the field are widely recognized, Floriana Gargiulo from Sorbonne GEMAS and Tommaso Venturini from the Media Lab of the School of Social Sciences at the University of Geneva. As you all know, in an era marked by the rapid advancement of artificial intelligence, we find ourselves at the crossroad where the ethical implications, potential bases, and political ramifications of AI technologies come to the forefront of our collective consciousness. Today, we are not only here to examine the shadows that AI may cast, but to also illuminate the rays of hope and possibility it offers. Our panelists are prepared to share compelling instances from their diverse disciplines where AI has brought about positive transformations, where ethical considerations have been upheld, base mitigated, and political processes enhanced. However, our exploration doesn't stop at the realm of the positive, of course. As we delve into the nuanced landscape of AI impact, we will also dare to venture into the realm of caution. We'll ask our expert to vividly envision their worst nightmares, the dystopian scenario, or maybe not so dystopian, where AI turns a blind eye to ethics, perpetuates basis, and become a tool for political manipulation. Throughout this discussion, we'll not only uncover the condition that may allow AI's positive impacts to flourish, but also engage in a necessary exercise of foresight to understand how such potential pitfalls can be avoided. By bringing this aspect together, we hope to create a comprehensive dialogue that not only celebrates the potential of AI for good, but also foster a collective commitment to steering AI toward an ethical, unbased, and responsible future. To facilitate this, we are privileged today to ground our discussion in the insight of four distinguished experts. We will commence by allowing each of them to introduce themselves briefly in a first round of introduction. So let's begin, if you will, with Lena Karel from Expedia. Thank you very much, Lena. The floor is yours.
Oh, yeah. So hi, everyone. So first of all, thank you for having me today. So as it's written, my name is Lena Karel. I'm currently a machine learning scientist at Expedia Group. And what I basically do in my day-to-day job is that in the team I'm part of, we are building algorithm to recommend actions to take for lodging partners on the Expedia Hotel.com Vrbo HomeAway platform, basically. In the meantime, and that's something I forgot to mention on the slide here, but I'm also an ambassador at the Women in Data Science Geneva chapter. And so that's why my main interests related to my work, let's say, are first of all, machine learning and AI in the travel industry, for sure, but also gender bias, especially solving gender bias in the tech, machine learning, and AI world. And I think that's me. Thank you.
That's perfect. Nice to meet you, Lena. The next person following her, we have Isabelle Collet from the Faculty of Psychology and Educational Sciences at University of Geneva.
Thank you, Liz. Thank you for the invitation. So I'm Isabelle Collet. I am currently associated professor at the University in Geneva in education. I used to be a computer scientist quite a long time ago. When I began IT, there was still floppy disk, if you can imagine that. I've been working about gender and IT since my PhD at the end of the 90s, and I'm working about gender balance in IT, and more recently about gender biases also in AI and the representation of IT and the fantasy about IT that we have in AI, which permits this poor gender balance we have with male representation of IT. Yes, and that's me. Okay.
That's perfect. Thank you very much, Isabella. So, moving forward, we have Jérôme Duberry from the Graduate Institute.
Thank you, Give. Hi, everyone. So Jérôme Duberry, I'm the Managing Director of the Tech Hub, which is this new horizontal initiative at the Geneva Graduate Institute, where we build capacity around digital skills and literacy. We incubate innovative research, and we do also some kind of outreach around tech policy. I guess I'm here today because my own research focuses on the technology and civil society nexus. First, I looked at how NGOs use digital technologies to participate in global environmental governance, published a book on that a couple of years ago. And then more recently, since 2019, I'm working on the social and political implications of AI and how AI is used in Western pluralist democracies. And I published a book on that last year. And I'm particularly interested in how AI is actually intermediating the relation between citizens and governments. And last year, we also received some funding for a scientific communication project that is conducted in Switzerland, where together with youth, so teenagers around 18 years old, we co-design stories of the future of democracy or futures of democracy with AI. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jérôme. And last, but actually not least, of course, we welcome Félix Tréguer from the CNRS Center for Internet and Society.
Hi, everyone. Thank you to the organizers for having me on this panel. So I'm an associate researcher at the CNRS Center for Internet and Society. I joined academia as a social science researcher 10 years ago after having worked as a policy analyst for a French digital rights organization called La Quadrature du Net, in which I remain involved to this day, doing campaigning, advocacy, as well as litigation around, in defense of fundamental rights in the way regulation of digital technologies develop. First, mostly internet regulation, but increasingly digital technologies at large. I've also been a postdoctoral researcher at the Center for International Studies at Sciences Po in Paris, where I've worked on digital surveillance conducted by intelligence agencies and their dealings with large private actors in the technology sector. My research has touched also on online censorship, the grassroots governance of telecommunications networks, and there's a book adapted from my PhD thesis in French, whose title is The Counter History of the Internet. And last year, as a side project for lack of actual resources to devote more time to the topic, I co-founded a research group at the Center for Internet and Society on critique of AI, where we started hosting a seminar, inviting scholars and activists from diverse backgrounds to shed light on the AI hype and help document its dangers, its harms, in a context where we saw a lot of colleagues in the social sciences reluctantly somehow join a research project and lay lip service to the AI frenzy in academia. So that's a work in progress, and I'm really glad to be joining this conference.
Thank you very much, Félix. Note that the introductions have been made and done. We can proceed with the actual roundtable discussion. We will pose a few questions to our panelists and to open the floor to the question after that from the audience. And to participate to this round of questions, we invite you to visit the SpeakUp platform where you can submit your question via the QR code. which appear actually at the screen, and we will let it during all the time of the roundtable. At the conclusion of the session, we will address the questions that have garnered the most votes. So do not hesitate to read the question frequently, to vote for them. So without further ado, let us embark on this journey of exploration, introspection, and proactive envisioning as we reveal the intricate tapestry of AI ethics, base, and politics. And to do that, I will let the floor to Floriana Gargiulo, maybe because we didn't have that plan in our schedule, but we have a little bit in advance. Maybe you can just introduce yourself as well as Tommaso when it will come to your question. Floriana, the floor is yours.
Okay. Hi, everybody. My name is Floriana Gargiulo. I am a researcher at the CNRS in France. I work in computational social science. And in particular, this last year, I did a project called Scientia that is focused on the impact of AI in science. So I have the pleasure to introduce the first question to our speakers. Considering the theme of this panel, that is AI, ethics, bias, and politics, we usually discuss about the challenges and the potential pitfall of AI technologies in our domains. However, before entering into this part, we would like to ask to each of you if you can provide an example of a case where AI had a positive impact, where in the sense that it had an effect in promoting ethical consideration, in reducing bias, and in enhancing positive political processes. So, in other words, how has AI been a positive force for change in your disciplines? So who would like to start? Maybe Jerome?
Thank you. I'll talk a little bit about AI and democracy, but let me maybe start by saying that actually AI won't solve any structural issues such as disengagement, unequal participation, and political participation. And as well, I'll share a couple of examples of how of the opportunities that AI offer for democracy. The list is not exhaustive; it's just some kind of illustrations. We can find in the literature and in Gray and so on literature, we find a lot about challenges, risks, threats, but not so much, at least less, to my understanding, about the opportunities, so the bright side of the story. And when we look at these opportunities, we can maybe group them around three topics or three pillars. The first one is around citizen participation and AI providing tools to kind of scale up political participation. And here you have some examples. Some are well known. For example, the EU consultation on the future of Europe that used machine learning tools, machine learning algorithm to process some of the data, unstructured data submitted by citizens throughout Europe. We have different open source platforms such as Polis that is proposing or offering to process there as well large amounts of data, such as comments from citizens. And another example coming from the Finnish Innovation Fund, Sitra, that used automated phone calls to collect the views of citizens at the municipal level and then process this data with an AI to actually increase the participation of citizens. We also have examples such as Decide Madrid or V-Taiwan that are also good illustrations of how AI can, or different forms of algorithms can actually contribute to improving the participation of citizens, improving under different definitions. Of course, you think of chatbot, ask a question, you have a chatbot answering your question, and maybe another one would be sentiment analysis. So policymakers, governments analyzing what citizens or individuals publish online about a specific topic to actually understand their views and maybe identify some needs that were not addressed yet. The other group of discussions around AI opportunities is around the information ecosystem. We know that AI presents many challenges when it comes to social media platforms, etc. But it is used as well to combat disinformation and fake news, deep fake, and so it can also be there not only to combat fake news but also to organize the information differently, present the information differently in a way that is more accessible, especially when it comes to very complex issues. So present the information in a way that could be maybe more attractive to some citizens. And the last pillar is around public action. And so here there is a lot of examples of how AI can make public action more efficient, more effective as well. And so there is a lot around fraud identification, for example. There is a lot around as well, of course, police prediction, very controversial. For example, the city of Zurich is using this. Also around the analysis of satellite imagery to identify, for example, or to track deforestation. As well, to identify in Denmark, for example, when somebody calls, if the person may be having a heart attack, so to be able to actually act very quickly. We have, as I mentioned earlier, on chatbot. And the last example maybe would be around nursery child allocations that is in Poland done by an algorithm that analyzes a number of criteria about the parents. So I'll stop here. There's a lot around AI and the SDGs, AI and monitoring, of course, climate change, etc. But I'll stop here. Thank you.
To answer the best. Sorry. Okay. So my positive impact will be maybe a bit more mainstream, I'd say, because as I'm coming from the industry, it's more I've been more looking at in the industry, in the application, in the day-to-day lives of, let's say, citizens. People, we've seen that a lot of new technologies around us are more and more integrating AI algorithms, AI systems into their way of working. And some examples that are coming to my mind when I'm thinking about that is, for instance, facial recognition. So there are definitely some negative points about that, but that's definitely not the question. So here I'm thinking now we can unlock our phone with facial recognition, while of course we do want to securize our data and make them not available to everyone. So facial recognition is an easy way to prove our identity. That's also the case with recommendation systems. They facilitate the life of people using them. I'm thinking, of course, about streaming and e-commerce platform. For instance, with Netflix, we've been able to discover shows that we would never have thought of or discovered otherwise. With Amazon, they are recommending also products that we could need. I'm also thinking about, of course, on the Expedia website, for instance, the recommendation of hotels is supposed to be, and we are trying to make it as convenient and as on the point for you to find the right hotel where you want to stay. So that's basically applications that came more and more into our lives and helps our lives be better and easier to find what we need and to optimize a bit all time around that. So that's my positive impact.
I'm going to cheat a little bit because I'm here to speak about allocation and representation bias. So, of course, you can guess I'm not totally positive about AI, but we could improve what we have. My first example will be with recruitment. You probably heard about Amazon when Amazon wanted to automate its recruitment. Of course, Amazon received a mass of resume, and an AI could sort them, extract the 5 best, and recruit them directly. And it's a kind of symbol of the HR system. Problem when Amazon tried to do that, the selected resume were all male. So Amazon backtracked, apologized for the sexism of the algorithm, and abandoned it. Of course, it was not the problem of the algorithm, but the problem of the Amazon HR system, and maybe they should have abandoned it, but AI was a scapegoat in that case. It understood perfectly how it works to have a career, to be well paid, to stay a long time with Amazon. It's better to be a man. So logically, AI favors men and disfavors women resume. And if I quote Alain Lacroix, Tristel Martin Lacroix, who wrote a very interesting paper about recruitment tools, if predictive recruiting tools draw probabilistic conclusion from a biased sample of population, for example, a sample in which women are underrepresented, any recruiting decision based on this conclusion will systematically disadvantage candidates, here women, underrepresented in the training data. But of course, it's evitable, because if we can audit the result and you realize that the results are biases, you can recalibrate the training data, and then you allow the algorithm to modify its prediction. These recalibration techniques aim not to make a learning base representative of the actual employee, but we guess that the company does not want to clone itself, but rather to make it conform to an ideal model, for example, a more inclusive HR system for the company. So if you ask the algorithm to make a short list with 3 men and 3 women, of course, the algorithm will do it. So we can ask the algorithm to help us to fight our unconscious biases and to help us to be more inclusive. We could. Unfortunately, I don't have example of company who actually do that. And another rather ironic example, you speak about facial recognition. At the beginning, when you wanted to unlock your phone, and if you were Asian, it was quite difficult because you can't unlock your phone if you're unconscious or asleep, of course, and it's a security. But with the Asian eye, the system asks people to open their eye. Because in the data set, you have too many white faces, and with the Asian eye, the system thought the person was unconscious or asleep. So of course it's a problem, and you have to change the data set. And for example, I have another example I'm particularly concerned. If you ask DALL-E to represent a 50-year-old woman, DALL-E have a hard time because there is no visible 50-year-old women in the media. So you get one type of woman. She's blonde, slim, white, and probably more 70, 80 than 50, because 50 is old, and with old, you are quite older women. So in Martini, for example, in Dieppe, they use AI to generate a variety of faces precisely in order to increase the variety of faces in the database. So you use AI to enrich the database for itself. And Black people, elderly people, and unconventionally handsome people maybe won't disappear for AI-generated image. So we can use AI to increase equity, but of course it's challenging, and of course it's expensive. And then you have to think about it. You have to think it's important enough to engage money. GAFAM can afford this, of course, but what company will take this path? For the moment, I don't know.
So on my side, I had to think pretty hard to think about a good example of positive changes brought about by AI. My field of expertise is digital surveillance. So, but I guess your last example on improving the accuracy of facial recognition could be one. There's a report by two of my colleagues at the Berlin-based think tank SNV who looked at the way intelligence oversight can be improved through data-driven tools. So intelligence oversight, it's basically the agencies in charge of overseeing the authorization and data collection and data retention processes within intelligence agencies for their surveillance activities. And in the report, they suggest that AI could help oversight basically catch up with the new surveillance, AI-based surveillance technologies oftentimes used by these by intelligence. We could, for example, imagine an AI-based system for identifying non-compliant uses of intelligence databases. And some actors in the field are actually exploring these avenues. That's the case of the Dutch Intelligence Oversight Agency, the CTIVG, which embarked a few years ago in what they call a program which is entitled Oversight 3.0, where they're exploring these avenues for data-driven and oversight innovation. So it does not really solve the issue, but it's a way for low-resource oversight agencies to actually catch up with the fast increasing capabilities of intelligence agencies. So it's one of the best examples I could think of.
Thank you very much for your questions. So it is sometimes a little bit both reassuring and also worrying hearing your different answers. And so my follow-up question will be then about which would be the conditions you think could make these positive consequences of AI a reality? And what would be the condition that, on the other end, quite the opposite, might unleash the threats of AI that, some way I've got kind of heard, some of you actually spoke of them explicitly, some of you hinted at them. And so rather than, as we often do when we talk about AI in general, big data and digital technologies, just thinking about what could go wrong or what could go right, maybe we can take 5 minutes to think about what are the conditions or the factors that can push this evolution for the better, if you want, or for the worse. And Isabel, I think you were you started already answering your question, I think, so you can go first.
Okay, thank you. It's a bit difficult to answer because, as I said, I cheated. But we can observe some improvement, and usually these improvements are coming either from the non-organizational, non-governmental organization or from the civil society. For example, in 2018, the first FAT conference, Fairness, Accountability and Transparency of AI, in Atlanta, asked the question of what is a fair AI. Arvind Naranayan, a researcher from Princeton, formulated 21 definitions of fairness. Okay. Intellectually speaking, 21 definition is wonderful. To implement, it's a nightmare. And while we are tools available to assess of the fairness of an algorithm, the results are highly fluid, and you can switch from some definition to other definition very easily. And which definition you drop? Because you can't comply to the 21. What is the most important and the less important when you will implement AI and when you think about fairness? So this approach is quite difficult to make it work. But I have a good example of success. In 2018, UNESCO published a report called I blush if I could. I don't know if you heard about this report. It denounced the sexism induced by voice assistants. Most voices assistants are young women voice, indefinitely at your service, waiting for your question, answering very politely. And the report pointed out Siri's female obsequiousness and the servility expressed by so many other digital assistants projected as young women provides a powerful illustration of gender basis coded into technology products. And when you harass this assistant, for example, when you say to Siri, you're a bitch, Siri said, I'd blush if I could. So she flirted. And Cortana sent for the feedback. So now you can't do that anymore because it's a bad buzz with this company who claim to be modern. So with this kind of report, they raise the awareness of the civil society, and then the company, even the GAFAM, have to comply a bit to avoid this kind of answer. Similarly, it used to be impossible to create a Facebook group with the word lesbian, because statistically, lesbian was used to name pornography group for straight men using this word. So for people who just simply want to use the appellations that represent them, they were prevented to do it. So there was an official protest for the LGBT activist group, and now the word lesbian is usable again to create groups. The other reason we can have changes probably is economic, because a non-inclusive AI is less efficient. Right now, for example, there is a major challenge in the field of voice recognition, for example, to help elderly people stay at home. But today, an AI, just imagine an AI capable of responding to a voice and calling for help. It will be very useful. But it has to work at 100%, of course. However, the voice recognition of elderly people, especially of old ladies, actually is not sufficiently powerful to be entrusted with their life. And unfortunately, the buying power of the old ladies may be not yet enough to attract the attention of AI designers. It's not only a problem of dataset, it's also a problem of optimization of voice recognition on low voices and not on higher voices like the women voices. So a non-inclusive AI is less performance, so there is an economic challenge, but at what point is it worthy to engage this kind of reflection? In fact, I don't know. Next.
All right, I continue. Thank you. So to build on what was just said, I think for me, the most important condition would be around the question of who. There is this network of researchers called Design Justice, and they ask 3 questions: who is involved in the design of the technology, who is harmed by it, and who benefits of that technology. And around this, there is a lot of discussion, for example, around streams such as AI alignment, how to align a technology and an AI to the design and the wishes of the designers of that technology. But the question again is who? Who designed that technology, with what intent, and will this technology respond to this intent? And we talked early on about Amazon, Google. These organizations and these companies also project a certain type of vision of worldview. So a technology is in fact an expression of a worldview, an expression of values. It's of course not neutral. The technology itself, the way it's designed, the functionalities, the features are actually shaping how we behave or how we act. In the same way, we also shape that technology. It goes both ways. So the question of who is absolutely crucial. And behind the who is what is the ideology, the worldview? Is it the view of Elon Musk, this kind of multi-planetary future where the best ones or the wealthiest one will be lucky enough to go and live in Mars while all the poor other ones are staying on the destroyed planet? And it's interesting to see that there's really this kind of political vision, transhumanism, blah, 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 all of this, which the Silicon Valley is actually trying to expand. So this kind of form of imperialism. And what is interesting is to see that some of the key actors today of the AI world, and think of Sam Altman, for example, they are also investing in biometric. So they're also investing in other revolutions, such as the biological revolution, so to make this kind of worldview even more complete. So for me, to answer the question, the most important condition to all of the opportunities I mentioned before is to ensure that the end user, the citizen, civil society, us, are not only included, but are leading the design and the development of technology. And this is something very difficult to do. But I believe that in the context of the public action, government, democracy, this is absolutely crucial. Thank you.
Thank you. So I'll talk next about what conditions I think are important for having a fair AI, non-biased AI, an ethical AI. So first of all, I think, and that's something we're seeing more and more in companies, having ethical committees or responsible committees around AI, making sure that every algo that they are producing is not biasing, is not hurting anyone, is not doing something we would not do by ourselves. That's something that I know for a fact that Microsoft has its own AI principles and guidelines that the company and the teams are supposed to follow for their AI algorithms. I know that a lot of companies also have their own ethical AI programs, and that's something that maybe sometimes not communicating about, but a lot of them do have committees. And I think also that the fact that we do have now laws about data privacy, and I'm thinking, for instance, about the GDPR and the AI Act in the European Union. That's something that is also forcing companies to respect the rights of citizens, is enforcing the fact that our data are not going no one knows where, extra. But also I think, and that's something that probably coming back to what you were saying before about who, if we have more diverse teams for building these algorithms, and that's exactly what we need, because in the example, Isabelle, you gave earlier about the Asian eyes, if more Asian persons were in the company, were in the teams that was building this feature, they would have been able to test on themselves, test on all the people of the team first. That would have allowed them of detecting that bias. And same for gender bias, and same for everything. So more diverse the team, the better it will be for the fairness. Well, and that's why I think having groups supporting women, not only women, I know, but that's my expertise, so that's why I'm talking about group of underrepresented communities, supporting them, showing also the youngest generations that it's possible. That's something you can do. You can work in IT even if you are a woman, even if you are coming from another community that is underrepresented in the industry. So that's definitely something also that will help grow these minorities into the industry, and that's something that I hope will continue and make it better and better.
So I agree with everything that has been said, but from my perspective, there is very little chance that these conditions will actually be met in the world we live in. Creating participatory frameworks where technological innovation can be reconciled with democracy has been a key priority for many researchers and activists and policymakers engaged in science and technology studies. And a growing view in the field is that those mechanisms have failed to foster democracy and rebalance power relationships in relation to technology. This participatory framework appear largely as a way of governing critique, acting as a legitimization device, and thus fostering what is called the social acceptability of contested technologies, reassuring the critics, basically, and the wider public. And I think the point can be broader. The strategic use of participatory framework can also be seen in the way law, ethics, or decentralization, or many other approaches are being implemented in relation to technology. And I think if we care to look at history, we can see that it is the case. Most, if not all, of the safeguards that we developed around computing for the past 40 years have ended up in failure. So if you take the example of data protection, for instance, and it's important that they exist. And as an activist working with a digital rights group, we use the GDPR and associated texts. But the basic philosophy for data protection was designed in the 70s to prevent the advent of widespread digital surveillance. And although harms have been reduced, I think we can agree that mostly these legal protections have failed to prevent the drift towards a surveillance society. Yet this failure occurred in a rather favorable context, both politically and technologically. It was a period in which, in response to social movements of the time, states were adopting liberal legislations to extend rights and freedoms, when the introduction of microcomputers and the advent of decentralized telecommunication networks, led many observers and people in general to predict a historic breakthrough in the democratization process. All this has, changed. This context does not exist anymore. We are in a technological context in which AI, for now at least, is contributing to a phenomenal re-centralization of computing and economic power in the technology sector. Politically, we're facing systematic deviations from the rule of law and democratic principles, including in Europe. So I think this point is very important. We live in a time where the conditions for democratic technological innovation are simply not met. We see declining public research institutions. We see a geopolitical arms race. We see growing authoritarian practices. And yet, in this context, and much to my despair, we see in the current debate around AI, we continue to rely on the same remedies, transparency, explainability, ethics, risk-based laws, transparency obligations. These have not worked. And I don't think they can work in the future given this context. At the EU level, this morning we talked about the AI Act, which has a lot of good intentions, but without even talking about the world's blind spots of the spending legislation, like the ecological cost of AI. This legislation will most likely not provide effective remedies to ward off discrimination, human rights infringements, and other harms induced by the widespread deployment of AI. Just like the GDPR and its privacy impact assessments have done very little to protect privacy in the real world. This is especially the case considering that the AI Act may give great power to the industry to self-regulate, that it will be implemented mostly through private and opaque standardization bodies on which, democratic principles and procedures would likely not really work. So to go back to the question, I think the chances for democratic AI are pretty dire.
Thank you very much. I think we're running a bit early, which is in itself quite surprising. So I'll use the little time that we have left to ask even another follow-up question. And I forgot to present myself. My name is Tommaso Venturini, and I'm associate professor at the University of Geneva, and also researcher at the CNRS in Paris in the same lab that Felix was mentioning before. And so So now I feel a bit much less reassured than I was after the first round of answer, of course. And so my follow-up question would be, imagine you were the dictator of the world. You can do anything you wanted, right? So would there be some magic solution or some solution? I say magic because unfortunately none of you is, or maybe fortunately none of you is the dictator of the world. But if you were, what would be your magic, your sort of silver bullet? I don't know. This is not. We did not schedule for this, so whoever, I don't know who's going to answer first.
My silver bullet is not for AI or for IT. It's for the conceptor, the programmer, the inventor, because it was Norbert Wiener who said that what computer will give us is only what we put inside. So I have no silver bullet to shot to the IT world, but if I can obtain a solution for people to realize how non-inclusive the world is, maybe then we can produce finally a more inclusive IT and a more inclusive AI. For me, the solution is not inside the technique. It's before the people who think about the technique.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to get to that point with the last question, but since you raised the point, I mean, and I know this is going to sound very provocative, like the rest of my, basically what I'm saying today. But I would abstain from deploying those technologies at all. Like it would, rather than the pyramid we saw this morning with the only prohibitions for super contentious applications of AI, I would ban everything except for a few applications that can actually show that can save lives. And I might develop on why I think that might be necessary with the other dystopian scenario.
Well, that's a good question. I'm not sure my silver bullet would be around AI. That would maybe around ecological and climate crisis stuff, but maybe forcing everyone working on with machine learning and AI to put that to help solve the climate crisis. That would be quite good, I guess.
Well, very difficult to answer in addition to what has been said, and of course agree with. Maybe if we could find a way to translate our human rights into code and to kind of, we talk about code is law, and so to find a way to kind of ensure that the technology we develop respects and follows human rights, values, and principles.
We have a few questions from the audience now. Otherwise, I have plenty of questions, of course, but maybe the audience first.
The audience first? Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you very much. We will now proceed to the audience. So there are a few questions on the Speak Up platform. Do not hesitate to add questions now because we have plenty of time. We have 30 minutes now to answer the questions. So do not hesitate to put questions now and we will come to them. Actually, if there will be no more questions on the platform, we'll maybe open the mic for direct interaction with you, audience, as well. So the first question with 12 votes, what steps are being taken in industry to mitigate base, gender, race, sexuality, gender identity in their domain?
Well, I guess that's for me.
Yeah, I think it's for you.
So I have to admit that's the first company where I'm working at, so I cannot generalize a lot. I do know that we're at Expedia, we are starting to look into that, and every algorithm, every machine learning algorithm that is live is being looked into and is and is being examined by a committee. And it's looking at, everything that has been mentioned in the question. So I can't say a lot more because we've not communicated publicly about that. But I do know for a fact that this is things that are being looking at where I'm working right now. And also I can add what I've answered to the, not the dictator question, but the one before, committees, making sure that we hire more diverse employees will help also make sure that we take care of all these points. That's my answer. I hope it has been good enough.
Thank you very much, Elena. Even if you're not you don't work in industry, maybe you have crossed some of questions like that to mitigate base in your own field of research that you would like to. Yeah, of course. Sorry.
I have an example with IBM.
Mm-hmm.
A few years ago, I met people from IBM who were working about voice recognition, and they implement something very, very easy. Each person, of course, IBM is a very large company. Each person hired by IBM has to read a text to improve the data set of the vocal recognition. Because if you don't have the main accent of the country you live, for example, it's quite difficult also to be understood by AI. And it's, of course, difficult if you have a slight funny way to pronounce things. And it's more difficult if you are a woman, and if it's more difficult if you are Black, etc., etc. So each person have to read the text, so the database increase and increase with very type of voice, level of voice, accent, etc. And so they improve their, I don't remember how they call the voice recognition, but it became quite efficient even with local accent, for example.
Thank you very much. Isabel, somebody else would like to answer? Yeah.
I mean, the question brings to mind a debate that took place within the activist community of people fighting against police tech and facial recognition in particular. Because, you know, remember this debate, I think you mentioned it, but in the US, there was a big controversy about the racist and sexist impact of facial recognition. And, you know, the industry, some actors in the industry at least, set out to reduce those biases by changing the data sets and promoting non-racist, non-sexist facial recognition. And when we saw that from, you know, in France and with European colleagues who were working and fighting against the adoption of these new policing technologies, we felt that it might be some kind of trap. And I remember also a presentation by a professor in computer engineering that worked for the company Idemia, which develops facial recognition. It's one of the biggest actors in the field globally. And he would explain that, you know, you don't need to necessarily to revise the data sets. You can only modify the model so that these biases are addressed. That's one thing I wanted to mention. But, you know, from our perspective, like, do you really want a non-racist? I mean, does facial recognition becomes desirable because it's non-racist and sexist? And in the debate and in the French context, I'm often drawn to this historic analogy of saying, you know, what happens in 1940 in France if you have facial recognition deployed throughout society? There's no way you can organize clandestine networks to resist a fascist regime. So the point being, you know, at some point, democracy can only be saved or defended if some technologies are not deployed at scale throughout society.
Great. Thank you. You want to add something, Jean? Well, maybe another question, yeah. Next question. As the use of AI democratizes, and more people have access to sophisticated AI tools, how can you mitigate the use by bad actors for more nefarious purposes? Secondly, who can one trust to determine its limits and which AI applications should be prohibited? Yeah. Yeah, it's a long question. It's about how to mitigate the use by bad actors. Yeah, would like to.
So I guess the later part of the question is for me, and I don't have an answer. I mean, you could imagine some of the institutions we talked about this morning, but I don't think any of them are really optimal. So that would take a lot of imagination and democratic debate to figure out. And I'm sorry for this shallow answer, but it's the best I have at this point.
I can also jump in and answer a bit of this question. I think it's not a good idea to phrase the question how can you avoid a bad actor do something with the technology? Because there's no agreed definition of what a bad actor is and what a bad usage of technology is. So in general, when we think about both the sort of the technical guardrails or the regulation that we set in place for keeping technology on the right track, they should work for everyone. So it's not as if there were some bad apples out there, and if we can get rid of them, then the good people would use the technology in a good way. But I think it's not the right way of thinking about it. You always have to think that every usage that is possible will be implemented at some point, and possibly, so the whole point is like being able to anticipate all these possible bad and, all these possible users, not good or bad. And if some of them cannot be ruled out, then maybe we should go in the direction Felix was proposing. Then we have to ban the whole thing. The history of science and technology has proved that it's very difficult to single out one single category of users or uses and say, so we don't want this, but we'll take the rest. That never works. That never worked before.
Thank you very much, Milo. Maybe Jérôme? Yeah.
Maybe I would just add one point. There is a lot of publications, especially at the UN level, about how to mitigate the impact to mitigate the negative impact of digital technologies. So basically to look at, we don't touch the design and the deployment of technology, but we look at, what's coming after that, the consequences. And that's often where social science, where governments, civil society, NGOs are left. It's at really the end, when the technology is already here, we suffer the consequences, and oops, what can we do? And that was also what Sam Altman said when he was asked about the impact of OpenAI, the ChatGPT, on academia and university. He was like, oops, we need to think about it, we'll find a solution. So very often it's another tech solution to mitigate the tech issues. So here instead, what we should actually, the approach would be to have actually, good in tech or human rights by design or security by design, and this has been lacking a lot. So how in the design, the same way when you design a plane, the security is one of the first elements you have in mind. So it's the same with the technology. When you start designing the technology, there you should have all the questions about gender equality, about inclusion, diversity, and peace and human rights that I mentioned before. And very often these notions are not necessarily people who design the technology and the code. They have very different mindset and very different training. So we miss people who actually can bridge the gap between human rights experts and specialists and the ones who actually design the technology and code. And this is the gap that is a big issue. And when we try to actually interact with big tech, very often, do we talk to? We talk to human rights people at Google or the UN Affairs team at Microsoft in Geneva. And they're really nice, and they understand our discussion and our points, but they're not the ones making the technology. We don't have access to these guys, and yet they're the ones we should have access to. So my point would be, to have a lot more by design, human values or human rights by design technology instead of just focusing on the negative impact. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much, Jérôme. Maybe we can go to another question. The next question is, are you listening? Yeah. How can we strike a balance between the potential benefits of AI and the ethical concerns surrounding bias and discrimination, while still advancing technological progress? Yeah. We would like to start. Jérôme, okay.
Well, maybe just one first thing. We often have a very positive view of technological innovation, and we often believe that it's actually necessarily a progress. And that's one point that we should always question. Is it really necessary? Is it really a progress? Not always. And again, we come back to the human agency, the role of civil society who is not engaged in this discussion. Do I really need this technology? Is it good for me? So this is a big question. We saw as well what you mentioned earlier on, Felix. I mean, some technology may seem completely incompatible with our definition of democracy. Who is actually pushing for these technologies? And what is the political model that we are going towards? What is the future we're running towards? That's a very important question we should ask. And if I want to ask that question, I don't know to who should I turn to, because there's not really one person I can talk to, apart from some ideologists in the Silicon Valley.
Somebody would like to add something? No? Okay, perfect. So we can go to the next question. What specific actions can be done with AI to revert the significant gender base in computer science and STEM fields?
Maybe I take this one.
Yeah, I think so too.
First of all, I don't think AI can solve this problem. Of course, it can help probably, as I said before, if you ask, for example, an algorithm to give a short list with as many men as many women. I speak about gender, but we can use other bias we can have. It will help. It will help to fight our unconscious bias. But the first problem is now IT is conceived, program, develop, implement, maintain, etc., by a very homogeneous group, mostly white, valid, able men from higher education. So, of course, these people cannot think a digital transition for everybody. But today, maybe except me and few people who work on gender balance in IT, it doesn't bother many people. But it's completely incredible to think that we are comfortable with the idea of a digital transition driven by such an homogeneous group. So if you want to change something, I think usually you say you have to begin with the kids, the youngest is the best. Well, in fact, no, because it's a magical thought that if you think that if you act at primary school, this kid will produce a perfectly equal society. It's too difficult to ask such a thing for them because they are, after primary school, they will be raised in a still non-inclusive society. You can act at the university, you can act in the companies, but you have to think outside the box, and you have to think what is really important. Do I prefer to stay as we are, or maybe can we try quota, for example? Sometimes when I say quota, half of the audience stop listen to me. Because when I say quota, people think, oh, we are going to take people who are not good enough because of pity. No, this is not the point of a quota. The point is we are looking for people who are very good in what they do, but who are discouraged to try to enter a world which looks like not fit for them. Today, for women who want to go in IT, she perfectly knows that she's going to be 10%, 12%. Do you really want to go to a school where you are 10%, 12%? Sometimes no. No, because you know that probably your everyday experience won't be so pleasant, so nice that you want to stay. So we have to decide to implement very courageous action. For example, quota, but you also have to train the teacher. This is what I do at the University of Geneva. I teach equal education and how to be an inclusive teacher. And this kind of program should be in the curriculum of every person who are going to teach something, not only IT, but also, I don't know, French, biology, etc., to transform the education for something more equal. And so if you do only one thing at school, at the university, and in the company, is fighting sexual harassment, because it's a reality. Sometimes it's not comfortable when I say to people there is a reality of sexual harassment. And many times people told me, yes, there is a gray zone when men are uncomfortable. They don't dare to be in an elevator with a woman because they are afraid to be accused of sexual harassment. This is not the point. Women absolutely know when they are sexually harassed. And yes, it happens quite often. And sometimes it's just ordinary sexism. And do you want, as a woman, going to a company when you are 12%, and when you know if something like that happened, and of course it happened because this is the real world, you don't have anybody to talk about it because you won't be believed. So if you do only one thing to change the population in the AI and in the IT, is fighting sexual harassment and ordinary sexism.
Thank you very much, Isabelle. Maybe, Nana, do you want to add something as a woman in data science?
I don't have a lot to add because I think Isabelle had a great picture of how it could work. Maybe what I can add is, I said it's my first job, yes, but also before that I was working in another, still applying data science, but to another type of company, so not in tech, but more in public transportation. And there it was really mainly only men, or women were executive assistants, or they were in marketing and sales, but definitely around what was tech part. It was not big, first of all, but it was not diverse. And I think, as you said, fighting sexual harassment is super important. So I think investing into human resources that are, first of all, fighting it, and making sure that every hiring committee or every hiring process is non-biased on gender, but also race, extra, and making sure that every complaint will be listened to and will be received and will be important for them. So for HR, having HR departments involved, I think that's something important also.
Thank you very much.
And top management for sure. Yeah.
Thank you very much. The next question is what is your thoughts on licensing the role of AI developers as a means for providing protection for AI developers and to make sure that AI is developed in an ethical way? There's some? Okay. Of course.
There's also another question in the back.
Yeah, sure.
Yes.
Yes, thank you for this discussion. My name is Anita Lamprecht. I'm here as a private researcher and also for the Liquid Legal Institute, which is a legal think tank. And we have had discussions like this also quite a lot. So what startled me now a little bit was it feels like we're talking just about AI as if it was like one entity. Mm-hmm. And as I understand it, it's systems, models. So could we manage to solve the problem of diversity also with a more diverse set of AI systems that we implement? And then just one remark also, because I was struggling with it now for a while, is the remark of you, I'm sorry, I don't remember your name, Barry on my left. The chance for democratic AI are very low or not even given anymore. I found this is a very tough remark. And here I also want to ask maybe if the universities and the governments and the legal industry would work together, they could maybe produce AI systems, and I say systems, different systems for each country that could fill that gap instead of relying on the company provided AI systems. Thank you.
Maybe we can just answer this question, or do you want to add something about this question as directly? No? Yeah? Just take the mic, sorry.
When there are multiple AI systems, which there are, I think it would be important to be able to identify who is using exactly which product, which AI. Because these things have the potential to create drastic gaps between what people have as a life, what information they get, the quality of the information they get, the nature of the information, are they segregated, etc. So we need to work on something like maybe the watermarking of the data and of the development methods used, and then identify which group of people is using which one.
Thank you very much. Maybe Felix, would you like to reply to? No, okay. Yeah.
I mean, it was more of a comment than a question.
Oh, yeah. Good. So who would like to?
So the question was, could legal world, academia, and democratically minded people come together to develop democratic AI?
Yes, kind of to soften a statement that the chance for democratic AI is very low or not existing anymore.
Yeah, again, I agree in theory, but I just think that in the world we live in, the real existing world, this is not happening. And I've been in the digital rights space for 14 years, 15 years now. I feel like I've been through already 3 or 4 cycles of hype about open data is going to revolutionize democracy, and free software. First there was social web 2.0, and then there was also big hype around cloud and big data, and not so much in terms of democracy, but mostly in terms of creating a more level playing field in the tech industry. And I don't think these promises have delivered, so I've become very skeptical. And again, like when I read the newspaper and get informed about the state of the world we live in, I'm not really hopeful. So that's why I'm a bit dark and but I mean it's not like I'm resigned and I just stay there looking from a side and decide not to do anything because everything is rotten and there's no chance of saving anything. I think it requires a lot of thought about how we can organize political action to solve all these issues, and we've been mentioning useful remedies to address some of the problems we have identified in the discussion. But yeah, realistically speaking, I think it's going to require a lot of work, and I'm just a bit tired of, basically not ungrounded optimism, basically around technology, around politics in general. And I think we need to be much more lucid collectively about the state of the world we live in to find appropriate ways of organizing and taking action to engage and transform that world.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. There was another question. Okay.
Hello, I just have a brief actually comment. So something that I haven't heard anyone mention in regards to AI, which is very foundational, which is something we can all do in regards to gender, is insist upon gender disaggregate statistics, because this is very meaningful and has huge impacts. So, for example, in the developing world, where there is only aggregate statistics, for example, you can see 200 people died in a particular jurisdiction in a given month. But when you get gender disaggregate statistics, you find out that each and every one of those people died in an honor killing, and that was all women. So it really makes a difference when you install some of these baseline protections. And while Europe has very advanced protections in this area and has very advanced statistical commissions, much of the world doesn't, and there is ample opportunity to do really good work in creating baseline healthy ecosystems for gender disaggregate data. Just a comment. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is this comment? Two. Plus one. Okay, perfect. Plus one. Yeah. Another question? Yeah.
Hello, thank you very much for your talk. I actually have a question about power and about the people and about the power of the people, because here, I'm very grateful to be here. We exchange informations. Most of us are tech savvy, but in the end, the people who are going to use artificial intelligence, they didn't study at MIT and so on. So I was wondering, what can we do and what is done now to educate people about the technologies they use?
Once. Yeah.
Sorry, I can take this one, even though I'm not a panelist. It's a very good question, of course. There's plenty of things that can be done and are done. On the other hand, I just wanted to add a little bit of caution, because education also is historically not a good solution to this kind of problem. So there's often this idea that there's what is called an information deficit, that just, the audience or the people, as you said, using this technology, they don't know how to use them. If they were savvy, if we were just to teach them how to use them, then they would, then a lot of this problem would disappear. But it doesn't, unfortunately, it doesn't work like that. For one thing, people are actually more savvy than we think. Like, it depends, of course, it depends on the whole discussion. It's always complicated, because as someone else commented, I thought it was very good as well. There's not just a thing as AI as one technology. There's a bunch of different things. Then we call AI and not really AI, whatever. I don't even want to go into that. But anyway, people are generally actually, quite more intelligent that sometimes we think of them. And if bad unintended consequences of technology appear, it's very rarely because of a lack of information or education. And in many more cases, because of the socio-technical infrastructure and the way that basically the opportunity are stuck against or in favor of someone. So of course, education is a good thing. I'm not saying, and it should be done, and a lot of it. But it will, in other technology, it actually didn't solve the problem so much.
Thank you very much. Do you want to add something? Because I have to close the discussion with the audience. I'm so sorry, but we will be on the coffee table during the next few minutes. But before closing this session, we have a conclusive question about for all our panelists, exploring the other side of the coin, considering the intersection of AI, ethics-based, and politics. We have talked mostly about positive impacts, but now I would like to dive with you into a speculative realm. What will each of you, your worst nightmares look like within your area of expertise? If AI were to go down a path that disregard ethics, perpetuate biases, and become entangled in political manipulation. In essence, actually, what's the dystopian scenario you fear most, and how can we collectively work maybe to prevent it? It's another question, but just what is your worst nightmare? Felix, do you want to start?
So I can start, but thing is, I've become also so skeptical of political utopias and also of dystopian scenarios lately, especially, having witnessed the way some players in the AI industry have been agitating the prospect of human extinction due to the proliferation of super intelligent AI. And I think it's been diverting the policy debate from actual immediate concerns, while being a way also for them to, frame themselves as good Samaritans deserving a seat at the policy table. And I think it's been pretty successful in that regard. But I would not expect the billionaires and masters of this highly concentrated industry to provide actual remedies to the very various dangers and harms entailed by the deployment of these technologies. I had planned to go over some of these, but I think we're late. And so, because we often talk about the risks, but we fail often also to actually talk about, the way people engage and are harmed by AI. So I had a few examples, but what I'll do instead is maybe recommend a couple of readings. First is Resisting AI by Dan McKillen, who is a professor of creative and social computing, I think at Goldsmith in the UK. Dan McKillen, Resisting AI, really close to, I'm reading it at the moment, and it's pretty close to my own thinking. And another one that is more policy oriented is the latest report of the AI Now Institute, which I think is a good read. And yeah, I guess I'll stop there.
Okay. I think my AI nightmare would be, so I've been mentioning a lot the AI committees inside companies, and I've mentioned also a bit the laws regulating data and its use. My nightmare would be if zoos were dissoluted, because we've said it's not perfect, it's not always doing what it could do best, but if they were dissoluted, they would do nothing at all, and biased algorithms and biased systems would be in place, and no one, I hope some people would care, but if no one cares, yeah, that's a nightmare, because it's not for the good of humanity, it's not for the good of anyone, except persons that are already part of the majority, so not the best for me.
Thanks. Maybe John, and we'll go with you at the final. Okay. Yeah.
I think for me, I'll consider maybe the loss of competences. We delegate more and more tasks to AI, and by doing so, we lose some of our competences and skills. So I think part of my worst nightmare would be human beings less and less capable of doing things, or maybe thinking by themselves, taking decisions by themselves, and delegating it to an AI that is controlled by other organizations with the intention either to manipulate the population or for profit, or both. That's it.
For me, I say we are pretty much already in my nightmare, because when I see the proportion of people who work in AI, I think we can't do less. Maybe we can do less. We are not at zero, but nearly zero. And you speak about power to people. The few people who have the ability to give an opinion or advices about technoscience, who will listen to the people who are not inside the technoscience when they give an advice. But since today I have another concern. You know, I work about gender balance, and I don't know who asked question at Speak Up, but this afternoon in the room, we only have women voice to ask question. And this morning, I only heard male voice to ask question. Is ethics in AI a problem of women and computation a problem of male? This is a new concern for me. Not really new, but this was a big caricature this afternoon. Then we have education. I don't know what happened.
Thank you very much. As we draw this insightful session to a close, I would like to extend a sincere appreciation to several key individuals and groups who have made this gathering possible. First and foremost, a heartfelt thank you once again to the organizer of the symposium, including Stephen Schwab, whose dedication and vision has provided us with this invaluable platform for discussing the impact of AI on our society. Our deep gratitude goes out to our panelists, Lena Karel from Expedia, Isabelle Collet from the Faculty of Psychology and Educational Sciences at University of Geneva, Jérôme Duberry from the Graduate Institute, and Félix Tréguer from the CNRS Center for Internet and Society. Your expertise on East Side have enriched our understanding of this complex landscape, so thank you very much. Last but certainly not least, we extend our thanks to our attentive and engaged audience. Your questions have contributed to depth to our discussion, and we appreciate your commitment to exploring the intersection of AI, ethics-based, and politics. As we leave this gathering, let us carry forward the wisdom and ideas and thought-provoking some ideas as well shared today to continue our collective journey toward an AI-powered future that we hope to be more ethical, unbiased, and responsible. So thank you very much, and enjoy the coffee, and see you in 30 minutes for the next session.